him. The gospel of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
You may be seated. So the reason I asked, Dave, you can ignore the slide. You're not going to have to do the slides today for the sermon. The reason, for those of you who are visitors, we've been going through the book of Acts. We only have 4 chapters left. We're in the home stretch here. I need to address something else that came up this week. So not in the church, but outside. I'm going to address it. I'll explain to you in a second. So I am going to record my sermon that I had made for this week. I'll record it at home, and I'll upload it to our website for visitors. It's faithlancaster.org, or on our Facebook page. I'll post it, and I'll email it out for you so we can keep up, because I want to get done with Acts after the next 2 weeks. And then, because we have Charge Conference coming up, and then we'll go into the book of Revelation after that. I needed to address something today because I want to get ahead of it for your sake. Do you all know what cancel culture is? Cancel culture is in our culture right now, where if you say something that's unpopular or whatever, they try to get you fired or they try to silence you. That's happening to me right now. And I'm going to explain to you what is happening in a second. I have a book here called Christians in a Cancel Culture. It's a really, really good book by Joe Dallas. And one of the things he talks about is whenever the world tries to cancel culture Christians for speaking truth, that we cannot give in to them. We cannot cave to it. And he gives this reason. He says, if we become complicit with the cancel culture and its goal to silence our voice on vital but unpopular doctrine, then we'll set a precedent by which the church says to the world, we hereby give you permission, world, to dictate to us which truths we may speak and which truths we must avoid. Do you understand what he's saying? So if we give in to them, then we're saying, okay, you can tell us what we can say or not. You are the arbiter of truth as opposed to the Word of God. Our world says it's okay to be vocal about what you believe. It's okay to say strong statements, etc., as long as you say the stuff that they say you're allowed to say. You understand what I mean? So in this book, Christians Against the Cancel Culture, he gives a very good example of this. And he talks about how Carl Lentz, who's a pastor, recently got in trouble for sexual stuff, but that's not what this is about. He was on Joy Behar's show, and she asked him whether or not his church considered abortion a sin. And his response was, and this is a quote, that's the kind of conversation we would have finding out your story, where you're from, what you believe. I mean, God's the judge. People have to live with their own convictions. And then Laura Daigle, who's a Christian music artist, was asked if she thought homosexuality was a sin. This was her response. I can't honestly answer on that. In a sense, I have too many people that I love that are homosexual. I don't know. I actually had a conversation with someone last night about it. I can't say one way or the other. I'm not God. So when people ask questions like that, that's what my go-to is. I just say, read your Bible and find out for yourself. And when you find out, let me know, because I'm learning too. So they're afraid to say, speak truth because they don't want to be canceled. And there's a career. Now, the world is okay with, like I said, with us saying strong things so long as it's with a popular opinion. So imagine if they asked Carl Lentz, what do you think about sexism? Okay, everybody in our country hopefully agrees sexism's wrong. So put his exact same words with that question. That's kind of a conversation we would have finding out your story, where you're from, what you believe. I mean, God's the judge if sexism's wrong. People have to live with their own convictions. Or imagine if they asked Laura Daigle, do you think racism's wrong? I can't honestly answer on that. In a sense, I have too many people that I love who are racist. I don't know. I actually had a conversation. You see my point. They have a problem because of what they're standing for, not the fact that they're standing for something. I have been getting some fallback from the United Methodists and from people outside, but Carlos, our district superintendent, is supportive because I have not violated the Book of Discipline. I have not violated church teaching, but I'm going to explain to you more in a second. So you know, but I've gotten fallback, and I want to get ahead of it and tell you about it before you hear it. So I'm going to tell you exactly what I do, what I am involved socially and politically, and for a very good reason. And I'm going to tell you it so you're not caught off guard. See, the Methodist denomination, out of all denominations, is known for its social activism, for being out there and involved and representing and standing for what is right. But again, just like the example I gave you, they like that as long as you stand for what they want you to stand for. You understand what I mean? So, the Methodist Church, like I said, has been always called its clergy and its people to be socially and politically active. In the Book of Resolutions, which is resolutions that are passed at General Conference, here's what it says. Taking an active stance in society is nothing new for followers of John Wesley. That's what I'm doing, taking an active stance in society. He set the example for us to combine personal and social piety. Ever since predecessor churches to United Methodism flourished in the United States, we have been known as a denomination involved with people's lives, with political and social struggles. Such involvement is an expression of the personal change we experience in our baptism and conversion. The United Methodist Church believes God's love for the world is active and engaged, a love seeking justice and liberty. We cannot just be observers. So we care enough about people's lives to risk interpreting God's love, to take a stand, to call each of us to a response, no matter how controversial or complex. The church helps us think and act out of a faith perspective, not just responding to all the other mind maker-uppers that exist in our society. And then the Book of Discipline says, by joining heart and hand, we assert that personal religion, evangelical witness, and Christian social action are reciprocal and mutually reinforcing. Scriptural holiness entails more than personal piety. Love of God is always linked with love of neighbor, a passion for justice and renewal in the life of the world. And there's a section in our social principles in the Book of Discipline called political responsibility. It's the political responsibility of all Methodists. Listen to what it says. The strength of a political system depends upon the full and willing participation of its citizens. The church should continually exert a strong ethical influence upon the state, supporting policies and programs deemed to be just and opposing policies and programs deemed to be unjust. And that is exactly what I have been doing. Standing for policies that are just and against ones that are unjust. Because that is my duty as a Christian, as a Methodist, and as a pastor. So what I have been involved in is just standing. We started a group called the Black Robed Regiment of Western New York. I am the founder of it. The Black Robed Regiment is a term that the British used when referring to the American pastors in the American Revolution, because they wore their black preaching robes. And all the Black Robed Regiment is the church being visible and present with these people who are standing to preserve the Constitution of the United States. That's all. Standing to preserve your rights as American citizens. That's all it is. You can look at the website, brrofwny.com, means Black Robed Regiment of Western New York.com. You can link to YouTube and watch all the videos. We call for peace. We call for loving interaction, to follow Martin Luther King Jr.'s 10 Commandments. It's just very simple. We have Catholics, Pentecostals, we have now Baptists. We got like 20. We got other United Methodists involved. That's all it is. So I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I stand for vaccine freedom, to decide for yourself if you want to get, not somebody making you We have people who are losing their jobs now because they don't want to get a vaccine. We have the military that are giving dishonorable discharge because they don't want the vaccine. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I have every vaccine I think ever made to man except the COVID one. Because for me, everybody has to make a decision for themselves. My risk factor is extraordinarily low, and for me, it's not a decision. It's not something I want to take. That's our freedom as Americans. You see, our nation is a constitutional republic, not a democracy, which is mob rule. The highest law in a constitutional republic is the Constitution, right? That's the whole point. All laws, mandates, and rules must not violate the Constitution. So Marbury versus Madison was passed was a Supreme Court ruling in the early 1800s, and they said, quote, all laws which are repugnant to the Constitution are null and void. In other words, they have no bearing on Americans. You see, enforcing unconstitutional laws is lawlessness and an overstep and abuse of power. In Paul's world, for example, the emperor was the highest supreme law of the land, right? The emperor of Rome. Imagine if a local governor, like Herod, were to ignore his law, the emperor's law, and make his own. That violated the emperor's law. That governor would be at risk of execution, and at the very least would lose his role, would lose his position as governor. See, no citizen would be legally required to obey that governor's law because it violated the supreme civil law of the emperor. The United States was an experiment never before seen on earth. A nation governed by the people, for the people. The Constitution starts with these words: we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, we do ordain and establish the Constitution of the United States. You see, we are a nation where those who govern do so, as the Declaration of Independence says, at the consent of the governed. We are a constitutional republic. This means that our Constitution is the supreme civil authority and can only be ratified by the people in a constitutional convention. Any law that contradicts or subverts the supreme civil authority is to be challenged because such a law is unjust and illegal and therefore not law at all. Every governing leader, even police officers and military, all take a vow. What's that vow? Does anybody know? To uphold the Constitution, thereby vowing to not limit any of the rights therein. You see, the Constitution was written to limit government, not limit the people. That's what the Constitution says. The Bill of Rights is your rights, not rights the government gives you. When elected officials uphold the Constitution, we must honor them and obey them. When they clearly depart from the Constitution, we are under no obligation to obey them because they have made a law contrary to the supreme civil authority of the United States. The Constitution is effectively a suggestion at that point. The Declaration of Independence says this: we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. And among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations upon such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. See, the government exists to preserve your rights, not limit them as they see fit. To ensure that this happens, they govern at our consent. When those who govern do not work to this end, preserving our rights, thereby subverting the Constitution, and we are not to this point, by the way, then the people have a right to abolish and institute a new government. We are not to that point. I am against violence. Violence is not in order right now. Any government who seeks to limit that right, our rights, is guilty of not being subject to the supreme governing authority, the supreme civil law, which is the Constitution, which is subject to no temporal elected official. In addition, any governing authority that subverts the Constitution is guilty of breaking their vows and are thereby unfit rulers. Judge Andrew Napolitano said, "Your constitutional rights are not suspended, even in a pandemic." So when governors or mayors think their little edicts are the law, they actually are not, because I will trump your edicts with the United States Constitution. Therefore, as citizens of heaven, God is our supreme law, our highest governing authority, and we will submit to him. As citizens of the United States of America, we are required to submit to any and all governing authorities, so long as they do not subvert the law of God found in the Old and New Testament, and so long as they do not subvert supreme civil law, the Constitution of the United States of America. You know what's amazing? What I just shared with you was Civics 101 that a lot of you learned in grade school. But yet now, that is considered hateful, dangerous, bigoted speech. Our nation has strayed far from her Judeo-Christian roots, far from her constitutional rule of law. The result is growing tyranny and the glorification of sin as a good. Let's not forget God's warning in Isaiah 5, verse 20. Cursed are they that call evil good and good evil. Suddenly standing for good, all of a sudden our world standing for good, standing for rule of law, which is all I'm standing for, as laid out in the Constitution, standing for the historic Christian faith is now hate speech and violent rhetoric. This leads many to resort to slander. No one, not in this church. You'll hear what I'm talking about in a second. Demeaning, misrepresentation, and name calling. And this is what has been happening to me. This is a letter, a United Methodist pastor sent this to me to let me know that somebody's sending this around to United Methodist pastors and to Carlos and probably the bishop. And this is what it says. Reverend, I'm not going to say the name of the pastor who sent it to me. Reverend so-and-so, this just cannot be the modern Methodist Church. You have a pastor who is literally the American Taliban, organizing a militia. Apparently I have a militia. Didn't even know about that. Within 2 miles of my home. Stephen Mannion does everything wrong with evangelical Christianity. I cannot believe the Methodist Church allows this level of violence to fester in a mainstream religion. Mr. Mannion is actively encouraging insurrectionists. I'm encouraging insurrectionists to speak at my church and to radicalize fellow Western New Yorkers. Again, being constitutional is now radical. He is going to school board meetings in districts that he does not live in, like Clarence, and agitating for anti-mask. There's a Facebook post going on in Clarence Watchdog saying I was stirring up trouble at the Clarence board meeting. This is a blatant lie, and I have proof. One of our members of this church, Don Snyder, is on the school board. Where is that? Oh, here it is. Is on the school board at Clarence. And this is what she says. I am unable to attend today. She's setting up for her mom's celebration of life. However, I felt very strongly that I needed to let you know what I personally observed September 20th, 2021, Clarence Board of Education meeting. As you may or may not know, I am a Clarence Board of Education trustee and am currently serving my second term after winning re-election. Today, I am speaking on behalf of myself, not the Board of Education. It has been posted on social media and in print. We had many people with varying opinions attending recent meetings. Parents and community members advocating for choice, for and against masking, as well as other contentious issues. This meeting had to be adjourned due to attendees not following the established safety protocols of wearing a mask inside the New York State school building. By the way, I was requested to be there by parents of Clarence in Clarence School District. Further, New York State open meeting law gives the general public the right to attend the meetings of public bodies of which school districts they are part of. There is no restrictions on who may attend and observe. There's a reason New York has an open meeting law, because your tax dollars pay for every school district in the whole state. That's why you're allowed to observe. Pastor Stephen was at the September meeting. At this meeting, he did not speak during public comment session, was respectful of those in attendance, and followed the established protocols by wearing a mask. Those who say otherwise are grossly misinformed. As a school leader, I encourage any of you to come who have interest to attend and see our democracy at work. The point is that I dare to speak out, and as a pastor, I'm a target. So I wanted you guys to know about this, so you hear it from my mouth and you know the truth. I'm always peaceful. I don't talk at these school board meetings. I'm just there as a silent support. That's it. And this woman, who I have her name, but I'm not going to share it for her sake, because we have to be bigger people than them. She's clearly has has it out for me, and is willing to lie and slander me and send it out to entire Methodist, trying to get me fired, which, by the way, I won't get fired for this. I'm following the Book of Discipline, and even if I wasn't, we all know the United Methodist Church doesn't fire anybody for breaking the Book of Discipline. So it's not going to happen. If I was, I'd start another church, and I'd continue to do what I'm doing. I will not stop. Why? I have a relative in the Revolutionary War. My great-grandfather fought in World War I. My grandfather fought in World War II. They risked their lives for our freedom. John Adams said, "You will never know what it cost my generation to preserve your freedoms. I hope you will make good use of it." I will make good use of it. So I hope I have your support. I have to stand. I have to do this stuff because people died for these rights. So I am not going to stop. And I have Carlos's support. I'm blessed. Because he knows I have not violated anything in church law, and I'm actually upholding the Methodist mindset. And we all know Methodists are very active politically. They just don't like the side I'm on. They want me to be on the liberal side, which I'm not. So I think that's it. I know that was an unusual sermon. Thank you. Thank you. We'll continue. What's that, Helen? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. What's that? Oh yeah, Carlos is fine. Yeah, no, Carlos is fully supportive. Yeah. Thank you guys. We'll get back to Acts next week, and we'll be done in 2 more weeks.